living the best life. And having said that, that is why we, working with seniors, stay in networking groups, stay educated, and advocate for seniors to make informed decisions. We have servant hearts, and we help to educate, empower, and equip seniors. And today we have 3 expert panelists. So ladies, you want to come up and grab a seat? And you can just flip that button up and that'll work. So, all right, so first we have, oops, I'm supposed to be clicking right there, sorry. Thank you. Let me see if I can do this. I'm not good. Oh. That's important. Yeah, okay. We already went over that. Oh, we have a no selling policy. So each panelist has brought information about the services they offer. That will be available in the back at the end. It's no obligation. Pick it up if you want to. Otherwise, there is a sign up for next month's seminar. So here we are. So Sharon Osborne, Christina Schulte, and Cynthia Hoffman. So thanks for being here today, guys. So Sharon, start with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
I am Sharon Osborne, and I am the owner, senior advisor for Assisted Living Locators. I do have my CSA, which is Certified Senior Advisor credential. I am Dementia Care Certified. I have been doing this for a bit here, and I do senior placement. So I help find the communities for seniors to live in once they have decided that is what they need to do.
Okay, wonderful services you offer. Thank you for what you do. Christina.
Good morning. I'm Christina Schulte, and I am a licensed counselor in the state of Missouri. So my background is mental health. However, I've worked in the senior industry for over a decade. Actually, a little longer than that. A little louder?
Yeah.
Okay. I did one of the last everyone's ears out. And so I am a certified care manager with Care Choice Care Management, and my duties can range pretty broadly from assisting people in finding placement, much like Sharon, but I can also help with in the home, staying in the home, supervising caregivers, going to doctor's appointments. The list is long of things that I can assist with.
It's a very long list. You guys do an amazing job. Thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of different services and gaps that may fall as you transition and as things change, so we can help fill that gap.
Awesome. Cynthia.
Yes, I'm Cynthia Hoffman. I'm with Best Life Advisors, and I'm a bit of a unicorn, but we are all kind of niche industries. But I'm called a daily money manager. So I come from a background of financial work. As a CPA many years ago, and ended up my career in commercial real estate, ran a nonprofit for a while. And then during COVID, someone said to me, I have someone that needs some help, and I know you're doing that already, volunteer-wise. And that kind of prompted me to look at the need for help in the home with finances. And what we do is come in and do whatever is really needed. Anything from helping people get bill pay set up to helping people write checks, or in some cases actually writing their checks for them. It's a pretty broad range. The other thing we can do is help people who want to plan for those periods of time, giving them some general information and some advice on how to make that happen. That's it.
Okay, and you might recognize Cynthia. She actually was one of our panelists that we did on scams and fraud, which was great. And I have to tell you real quick. So one of my fellow realtors at my office, her mom lives in Florida. And I think Kim talked to her, and she thought something was going on with her mom, and she said, we just did that topic. Go watch our video on YouTube. And she did. And she's like, oh my gosh, that was so helpful. And as she found out, yes, her mother is involved in with 2 or 3 different gentlemen and romance scams, and she had to take care of all that stuff, button down her accounts and her passwords, and yeah, She was giving away some money, and so I'm glad they caught it. But all right, so Sharon, what's a little known secret or fact about your industry or business?
Little known secret is that we exist, but also we are a free service, free resource to the seniors in the community.
Awesome. Christina?
Again, that people don't know we exist. It's kind of the theme of this panel. But also that we are able to do a really wide variety of services and setting things up, helping manage things, and it's a very holistic approach. It's not just targeted at one specific issue.
Well, I think they've kind of covered those things, but I will say the one thing people don't know about what I do is it is a very broad spectrum. I do lots of things for people, from helping them get the senior circuit breaker set up on their taxes to something as simple as managing mail. People don't think about that, but people have to look at their mail and figure out what to do with every piece. And so many times we come into a situation with a new client, she has a whole stack of catalogs that come literally every day. So we're helping her get rid of that mail, helping her get on the no mail list, and take care of those things.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I know I keep going through my mail. Most of it's junk or bills.
It's all junk anymore. Or bills.
All right, so we're going to dive a little deeper, starting with Sharon to talk about senior living locators. So you mentioned, so you're no cost. So referral placement services, your boots on the ground for families. You're going to hold their hand through the decision-making process. So how is it that you can be free would be the first thing.
Well, one of the later slides does talk about how I do get paid. So I am paid by the communities. So if one of my clients ends up moving into a community, I have contracts with pretty much everybody in the area, and I get a percentage of that first month's rent. So it's very much like I'm a real estate broker for the senior communities. So that's how it can be no cost to my families and seniors. And I give out resources or referrals all the time, so you can always call me even if you're not wanting to look at communities. I'm happy to give out those resources because what you don't know, you don't know, and I like to just be of service.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, so you also provide and coordinate elder care services. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so a lot of times people need different resources, and it's not just about the placement. It's about they need a real estate agent because they're going to move now and they need some help with that. They need help with downsizing. They need help with elder law attorneys. They need money managers. So I have a big Rolodex full of different resources to kind of help give them those resources. I always give a couple people out because I always say interview them because it's who you want to work with and who fits best with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I put a footnote on this slide that I said, gosh, we really didn't want to talk negatively about other businesses, but I went ahead and put it in here because I wanted you guys to be aware. So a lot of people have heard a place for mom. You guys familiar with that? Okay. So Sharon, can you tell us how you're different from the place for mom?
I live here. I am actually in the communities. I pop in all the time. After I place people, I continue to follow them, make sure they're good, rather than just throwing referrals out to the different communities. I actually am in there. I go on the tours with you. I kind of help you write your pros cons list. I don't make the decision. It's not me moving. It's not my mom moving right now. It's up to you, but I like to give those choices.
Okay, and so what is a place for mom? What do they do?
A Place for Mom is an electronic referral source. So they have contracts with all the communities also. And so if somebody clicks on their link, sometimes purposefully, sometimes accidentally, they will just blast the referral to every community in the area. I also look at licensure rules and what good standing the places are at. So they just kind of refer to anybody they have a contract with.
Okay, so when they call, is that person even local or?
Not necessarily, no. They've never stepped foot in a lot of these communities. I think they're trying to change that now, so I'm not for sure.
So here's the caveat to that, is that once you get on their list, then they don't want another person to come in and provide services. Okay, so there's another company that does that, another company or two that does that in real estate, that if you contact them first, you know, they're like, no, it's our client, so. Anyway, and then there's another group that calls themselves senior transition specialists, which it took me forever to figure out actually what they were and what they did. But it's a group that they're basically going through a program to get that title, and they want to come, it's a way in to come in and basically buy your home. Okay, so just be careful of who you're talking to and, you know, what their agenda is. So, and the senior transition specialist is actually, they're based out of here, but they're going, you know, nationwide. All right, so customized solutions, Sharon. So providing short and long-term care options and a network of industry specialists and resources. So tell me about the different types of communities that you help tour and keep up-to-date information on.
Yeah, there's several different types. So it starts with independent living, healthy, you just kind of want to downsize, you want someone else to do some housekeeping, you want someone else to cook for you. So you're very healthy. A lot of times they do have some in-home care services, so you can kind of stay there for a while. They don't want you to have to move again. And then you move to assisted living, which assisted living is definitely 24-hour oversight. You maybe need some help with dressing, you need some help with showering, small little things, medications. Then you can go to memory care. Memory care is really only needed if someone is a flight risk, that they're going to walk out and be wandering down on the streets. I'm sure you've all heard stories of someone found on the road. They are confused, they don't know where their home is. That's when memory care comes into play. A lot of people with dementia, Alzheimer's can happily live in assisted living rather than go to that locked memory care unit. Then there's also skilled nursing, which is 24-hour oversight with nurses. So those are that higher level of care. They may have some wounds. They cannot get up by themselves. They can't get out of bed by themselves. They can't sometimes feed themselves. So that's that higher level of care.
Okay, all right. Short-term respite care.
Yeah, sometimes family members are the caregivers, and sometimes they would like to go on a vacation. In order to keep mom, dad safe, wife, husband safe, sometimes you just need respite. So there's companies that will come into your home and do respite, or there are different communities that will do respite for a short term. So you just pay a little bit more per day to get that, but then you know your loved one's safe, or you can have someone come into the home. So I can kind of refer those out.
Okay. And then you have emergency discharge, out-of-town relocations, adult daycare.
And adult daycare are typically for those with dementia or Parkinson's, but it is a day program, so some of them run 7 to 5, Monday through Friday, where you pay a fee and your loved one goes there. They are kept active, they are kept stimulated. The couple that I like are very good, and the family member then gets a break during the day.
Yeah, and we have a couple attendees who have spouses that actually, I know, have spouses that they take to adult daycare.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful, underused program for sure.
Okay, thank you. So you have a 4-step process, so can you talk more specifically about that?
Yeah, so first we start off with that in-depth needs assessment. So I kind of sit down with the person, we talk on the phone, whatever they're comfortable with, we can meet wherever, and kind of go over pretty much everything that they are looking at. We look at the physical needs of the loved one. We look at the financial needs of the loved one because every place costs different. And then we also look at just their social emotional needs. Then I take all of that information that I've gathered and I go through my database and figure out the communities that fit those qualities for that person. I usually narrow it down to 3 or 4. Some people want to see every single one. Happy to do that too. Sometimes it's nicer to have it narrowed down so you're not so overwhelmed. And then I schedule the tours, I make the calls. Another thing with some of the other companies, if you do that, all the salespeople are calling you.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of phone calls to get because it will legit be 50 places calling you.
Left that part out.
I forgot that.
I thought about that. So the place for mom, what happened, my brother did this when I was looking for my mom to go somewhere. And I asked my brother for some help because we needed to make her go from independent living to like assisted living. And so I'm like, yeah, maybe if you could, get more information. I've got some. These are the places that I know of that I think we should consider. Okay, sure. Well, what's he do? He goes online, clicks on Place for Mom, and he's getting bombarded with phone calls because they distribute your information out to all the different communities.
Yeah, pretty much everywhere, whether financially you can afford it or not, they send it out. So then all these people are calling you, which you're already stressed, you're already overwhelmed, that to then have all these people calling you going, when would you like to come tour? Don't you want to come tour? Don't you want to move in? Let's move in tomorrow. I take all of that because the salespeople know I will get in contact with them if my client wants to move on with them, and then I let them know if they've chosen somewhere else.
Okay, so you kind of be a gatekeeper on that.
Yes, I usually don't even give out your phone number or anything so they can't contact you.
So somebody's not taken advantage of by a really
Pushy.
good salesperson.
Yeah, that's true. Good salesperson.
Yeah, and nothing. They're doing their job.
Exactly.
I mean, so nothing against them. But I think the kind of the unbiased, independent person who can say these are all the choices based on what you told me that you're looking for, and I think would be a good fit for you, kind of thing. So yeah, good point.
Yeah, so then after we tour, we just kind of sit down, go through those pros and cons, and then if they choose to move, help them with resources needed. Move them. If they choose not to, that's fine too. Try to make sure they have resources for in-home then.
Okay, all right. So can you tell us a little bit more about this selection process?
So the selection process is going to be, a lot of it is that financial portion because some people only have a certain amount of money that they can spend. So it's looking at those places that fit within their means and what they are comfortable spending rather than going to some high-end place that is great and beautiful. But
So no upselling.
No upselling because no. So it's just making sure that if they really like to swim and that is something they want to do, that this place has a pool. If they like to play pool, that there's a pool table, there's a game room. If they are very social and they like to do horse betting or poker, or they like the ball games, all the places have different things available. So it's just finding those ones that fit with the personalities.
Okay. And you have step 4 is facilitated transition. What does that mean?
Yeah, so that is helping you get the paperwork, helping you, if you need to sell your home, get your home sold, helping you downsize, helping you move, helping you transfer whatever, communicate with the doctor. Maybe you need to talk to financial or a care manager to help out. So it's just referring to those different sources. And then once you are moved, I do continue to check in. If there are any issues, I like to know about it so I can bring it up to the communities because I don't want to refer to places that are not doing right by the people.
Okay. Nice. Okay. So who are why is it important and who are the typical people that, utilize your services? What are the different situations they're in?
Sometimes it's the seniors themselves and they are just ready to get rid of the maintenance on their home, the yard work, the housekeeping, all that. So they're like, hey, can we go look at some places to move to, right? I'm like, I'll move in. Someone's to do my housekeeping and cook for me. So sometimes they're the ones that call me. sometimes people don't know what questions to ask during the tour. So I kind of make sure, because when I'm talking to my clients, I find out what is really their main thing. If they really want a certain something, I want to make sure those questions are answered for them. So make sure that their questions get answered. Again, it's a lot of the overwhelmingness. If anybody has tried looking into the community, there's a lot. There's a whole bunch in the whole St. Louis area. There's a lot out here in St. Charles, but it's just figuring out the differences between them is very overwhelming. So I kind of try to help with that.
Cynthia, you had a comment?
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that I discovered in a meeting with a potential client was this client had really thought through the process. And he said, I asked him a question that nobody else had asked. I said, what was that? He said, I asked to see my final destination, not the final, but the final, like, what does the skilled care look like? Because when you move into independent living, it's gorgeous, you've got beautiful food, and I'm not saying that it gets worse, but I'm just saying it changes, and he wanted to see, what is this gonna look like? And I have a client recently who went to rehab in and out of the hospital a few times, and then has to go now to assisted living, and she's just appalled that there's only one choice of a room for her, and she's like, that's so tiny.
Well, and food is very important to people, because I had to take someone who is independent living, but she was like, I want to see what skills is going to be like. I want to taste the food, because I had been in rehab somewhere and the food was gross. And she was like, I want to make sure the food is great. So we went and had lunch at a skilled nursing place so that she could make sure it would be okay for her if that was where she ended up needing to be someday.
But I think that's part of what we all do, is really looking at the big picture and not just the immediate need. And oh, you need to move today, so then you just like, here, this assisted living will work, without taking into account all the finances, all the other care needs. Is there a spouse? What the future might look like? Is Medicaid planning part of the equation? And I think that that's something that I think we all do in terms of really making a thoughtful decision. And they aren't necessarily things that families or that any of you are thinking about necessarily at the time, until you're kind of too far in and you're like, oh, I didn't know that.
It's like having your first baby and you don't know any of the ropes and you're trying to figure it out. Having resources at your fingertips and just asking lots of questions before you make a big decision is a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And then Sharon, you talked about, you have on here that, well, the wrong or the short-sighted decision for a loved one, which Christina, you can mention.
No, you're perfect. Yeah, when you're working in crisis mode, sometimes you just jump and then you're like, what did I do? And then you have to jump again, and that's never easy for anyone.
And that's something we really advocate, and why we do these education pieces is because we want you to be proactive and be in control and make those decisions, be able to do your research. When you're in crisis mode, which unfortunately that's a lot of times when people like these three ladies get called in, you're under a time limit, your options are limited, and you may have to make a hasty decision that it's not the right decision. So there is, I don't know what the statistics are, but there are, quite a few people that end up going into maybe a senior community or something and then decide it's not the right place for them, and then they make a move elsewhere, which is upsetting and expensive as well. So you want to look on down the road in the future too.
And having someone like Sharon who knows all of the communities and knows what levels of care and what things they can accommodate and what they can't, can also help you anticipate what your needs may be. No one can predict the future, but when you just can take a step back or have an objective person saying, oh gosh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And factoring all of that into your decision and having someone help guide you is really, really wonderful.
Well, and I also think, I know I've encountered clients that I'm meeting with them because they said their families pressured them into selling their home. My kids think I can't, they want me to move. The house is too big for me, or this or that. And, somebody else could help be a supporter, your advocate on that. I know I have clients that I've gone to who said that, and I'm like, ask the questions about, well, it looks like the house is maintained well. Do you have the resources? Okay, do you feel safe? Are you happy? Run down the list. And I'm like, why are you feeling forced to move? And they're like, I just think the place is too big for me and don't like that I'm living alone. Okay, well, and then it came up about laundry downstairs. So I'm like, okay, we can move the laundry up to the main level. We can put in a stair lift. Would those options be good? So that particular person got another 3.5 years in her home. And then she made the decision to relocate to a community, and she made the choice. So it was a much more positive, happy situation with that. And she wasn't doing it in crisis mode either.
Yeah, and she got to make her own choice,
Yeah.
and that's always important. But there are companies that will do installation of just the walk-in showers. They will do the grab bars. They will accommodate the downstairs if you do have the upstairs, so that you don't have to use the stairs or get the chair lifts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the types of senior living. You kind of did.
Already kind of did.
We'll just breeze over it real quick. So independent living. So we have, so what we have on our slide is typically healthy seniors live with people similar ages. They have a restaurant type meals and housekeeping services. Social activities and care services may be offered.
Yep. Not everyone does that, but some do.
Okay. Assisted living. What's different between
The assisted living is going to definitely have 24-hour oversight with a caregiver. The independents, most of them now, not all, have someone at the front desk 24 hours, but they don't necessarily have anyone to assist you. Assisted living will have someone to assist you.
Yeah, and they are licensed and regulated by the
Yes.
state and
Yes.
assisted living.
Yes,
So that's-
independent is not.
Okay. All right. And
If I may say, I see frequently where it can be important to really assess what your needs are when you're thinking about moving into a community. Because most people are like, well, I'm going to leave my home and I'm going to go to independent living when the time comes. But independent living is independent living. And so, the time to move to independent is when you can take advantage of all of the activities, all of the amenities, all of that, and then add in some support. Because one downfall I see is people wanting to move into an independent living when in reality they have care needs, they may need help with medication. Doesn't mean a lot of independents now have some care supports, which is really nice because you can get some additional support and stay in an independent setting. But that's where I think a good kind of assessment of the situation and what your needs are would really benefit you in that then you can go and really thrive in that environment and not struggle.
Yeah, and independent is going to be typically cheaper than assisted, and sometimes it's even continues to be cheaper even if you need some assistance and you use the companies in there, or you can hire from the outside and have someone come in. It typically can also still be cheaper than assisted living. The price jumps a lot.
Yeah.
a lot.
all right. And then how about a CCRC?
Yeah, CCRC, Christina kind of touched on it for us. That is that continuing care. So that is a place that has that independent, assisted memory care and skilled nursing. Not that many around, unfortunately. And then typically, some of the ones that are around, great communities, but there is that buy-in factor. So they do look at your finances, make sure that you can afford, but then they will keep you through end of life no matter what happens medically to you or financially. But those are, we're running low on those in this area, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not a thing. There's a lot of communities that are independent assisted memory care. They do not have that skilled portion, and skilled, there's a big difference between skilled and assisted living.
Yeah, okay. And memory care, we kind of touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, those are those secure units.
Yeah, so, okay. All right, so you are knowledgeable about all of them, and so I would think that you know like who has availability, who's got the long wait lists, where the largest 2 bedrooms are.
Yes,
Now too, before you go, you could part of the club.
yeah. Those are some of the continuum care communities, but you can join and use all the amenities, but not be living there yet. So you pay a lesser price, and then you can still kind of have that social. You know, a lot of people move into independent, especially for that socialization. You're with your peers. You're not in your neighborhood, sitting in your home by yourself anymore. You're getting out and you're doing things, which then typically your life can be better quality and you do better health-wise.
Yeah. All right, so paying for senior housing, that's something that you have to be up to speed on and deal with. So is that part of your analysis, or, you know, when you're meeting with
kind of figure out what all you got hidden away, stashed away, whether there is a potential that you are going to need that Medicaid, because that will kind of determine sometimes where we look. Because if you are going to need Medicaid eventually, there are different places to look than if you financially have all your ducks in a row and you're going to be just perfectly fine. Unfortunately, the places are very expensive, so a lot of people do need that Medicaid. It's not something that's unusual at all. But it's just being aware that that is a potential that will happen and being prepared for it and kind of looking ahead.
Okay, so there's a lot you really have to keep educated on.
Yes, and the vet benefits and any other kind of grants, whatever, and then Medicare is not going to pay for your long-term care. So that is just for doctors and hospital visits. It does not pay anything for your long-term care.
I
I
know
think that's a huge misconception.
Yeah, I think everybody's encountered that, like, oh, you know, can you afford this? Well, Medicare doesn't cover that, so.
And also that in the state of Missouri, Medicaid will not cover assisted living. It will only cover skilled nursing.
Yeah, there's a small grant that covers like a couple $100 of your assisted living, and only certain places accept that. So, but it really is, it's like $272 to be realistic. So that's not a whole lot towards your bill in assisted living. And only certain very specific communities can accept that.
And I think that that's something people really don't understand the difference of that. And you wouldn't until you're in it. But that is really an important distinction.
And so the one exception that you don't work with people is when they going straight to skilled nursing.
I still give them the places that might have openings. I am going to tell you, especially with Cynthia here, talk to your financial planners, make sure you know what you've got, because to go straight into skilled on Medicaid, the places are not going to be great. So, you know, there are some places that if you have a year and a half of private pay, you can get in and then they will take you for Medicaid. That's what I always recommend people look into if at all possible, because to go straight to Medicaid, one, trying to find a bed in the area you want out here in St. Charles isn't probably going to happen. So you're going to be somewhere else in the St. Louis area, and you're probably not going to be where you want to be.
That is a real pickle. And I'm working with someone now, well, we both are, in trying to advocate for her and figure out what the best assisted living is, knowing that it has a skill that she can eventually go on Medicaid, not knowing what her care needs are. And it's tricky, but you know, really thinking that through and having someone help guide you can be quite helpful.
So up here, we have the Certified Senior Advisor, CSA, and I know, Sharon, that you have gotten that designation.
Cynthia has it also,
Yeah,
yeah.
and also Cynthia. So I don't have it. I really want to do it.
It's intensive. You have fun with it.
And
I don't ever want to do that again.
and it's an investment.
It is a big investment, and it's investment of money and time, but you learn a lot. And you learn just enough about all the different things to know when to send people to someone else. Because I learned all about taxes and attorneys and everything, which I know, okay, so they need this, so I'm gonna send them to them over here because I do the placement, I'm in the communities, I am not an expert on taxes or
It's a great set of resources for us, that these books are like the college education and senior living.
Yeah, so it's on my list to do, but
Yeah, but you have to keep your continuing ed, so I take different courses on stuff, and a lot of them are on the Medicaid and VA stuff, so I always go to those because it's always good information to keep hearing over and over.
so I would say this is another good maybe credential to look for other people who hold that designation because they're dedicated and invested themselves into learning and staying educated on
And their
everything
background
senior
checked.
related. Yes.
Background checked every 3 years, I believe.
Yep, every 3 years, we have to make sure we have enough continuing ed and keep current on things, because
Yep.
things change.
Oh, yeah. Okay, awesome, thank you. So we're gonna switch over to talk about care management. So the care management process. So Christina, you wanna start us off and explain what the care management process is?
Sure. So the initial first step is meeting with the client and family, if they want their family or friends or whoever's involved in their life there as part of it. And we go through all different areas, much like you do in terms of health, areas of concern, housing, religious beliefs, if that's applicable and what role that plays, medications, appointments, finances. I don't get into the nitty-gritty of, I don't need to know financial details, but just in terms of if you're looking at housing or you're looking at resources, what are the limitations? But we do kind of a comprehensive assessment to make sure that kind of we hit all areas that in your life. And then what is most important to you? And what is the reason that you called? And usually there's one reason why people call, whether there's a crisis, whether they're like, oh my gosh, mom's in the hospital, she takes care of dad, dad's at home, what are we gonna do? We need help. Or whether it be something that's a little bit more, I have quite a few parents who have adult disabled children who need to plan ahead for their care and make that transition. So really focusing on what is the most pressing need, but also, in my mind, and taking into account all these other factors. But then together, we come up with what the goals are and what the initial plans are. And again, I might bring up, hey, have you thought about this? But certainly it's very driven by the client and what their needs are and what they want help with. Because I can have all kinds of wonderful things on a treatment plan or that we can do, but if they don't want to do it, then, we don't have to. It's since it's not covered by insurance, it's, it can be very customized. There aren't parameters in terms of, oh, well, we can't do that. We have to do this today. We don't have to do that. And then we implement the needs and the plan. So maybe it's housing, maybe it's that I have quite a few ladies who I go with them to a lot of doctor's appointments and help coordinate their medical care because that can be very cumbersome and follow-up tests and these labs and that med change, and it's just a lot to navigate. Their children may be busy, out of town, working, not that they don't love them, not that they're not very involved, but there may just be some realistic constraints that keep adult children or other people from going, and maybe the senior wants someone to just go with them. So we would work on, okay, what are your appointments? And then we implement that. Some people who we've started with that, and then they're like, oh, well, I need this in my house, this isn't working, or can you help me pay my bills, right? Some things like paying bills, I call my friend Cynthia to come help me.
Yeah, and we were on the phone last night. You probably are well aware that the Medicare season started yesterday. So we were on the phone last night because I found out that none of the plans, the new prescription plans, are going to be taking a certain provider. And so I'm like, did you know this? And she's like, no. And so she sent me back a note this morning saying, Here's what I found out.
Yeah, so again, working in conjunction with folks into implementing, and that can change. So it may start that we're just working on doctor's appointments and then you end up in the hospital for something, or you're having a planned surgery. I mean, that's a pretty common thing too, is, oh, I live alone, I'm having my knee replaced, my kids live out of town, I just need someone to kind of help me through that process and figure out what do I need? What do I need? Have I thought that through? And so working with them on maybe that. So it's very individualized, and it's always changing. So I don't have a certain time frame of 6 months or 1 year or in which my services would end. So it's as people change, then we change what we're working on and what I'm helping with. I kind of like to tell people I'm sort of an assistant in many ways. If you have questions about things, you need help making appointments, you're confused about something, you're having problems with getting a medication refilled, I'm happy to reach out to the doctor. One lady, I'm getting her pedicure scheduled. So, priorities.
Yep. So
it can be a wide range of things that I can assist with.
right. So if I hear you correctly, I know that a lot of times these are family members that are maybe calling, asking for help, with a loved one. But people in our audience today, they could call you, okay, right?
Yes.
And if they're like being pressured from somebody, family that, hey, we really think you need to move, or can you help advocate for them and outline a plan that everybody's happy with, most importantly, the individual.
Right, yes, and that happens frequently where even if the family call, I have about half and half. I have some where it's the client calling me and some where it's the family initiating, but ultimately my client would be you, right? And so it's what you want, and that is at times at odds with what adult children or siblings or friends want. And so really advocating of, this is their decision. I don't make decisions for people. I might give my feedback on what I see, but ultimately I'm not the boss of any of that. People can make their own decisions. And so really sitting down and saying, your children seem concerned, but you don't want to move. So what do we need to do to make everyone happy so that you can stay here, they feel comfortable at night, that they don't have to worry about you. We have a lady that we've worked with together who it's much that scenario. The daughter would love her to move and the mom is like, I'm not moving. And so we have to I really work with the mother. I mean, I don't really talk with the daughter that much, but we figured out a few strategies of me helping her set up her medications and some different things. And then the daughter feels much more comfortable with her staying at home, knowing that, we have some things in place to keep her safe. So absolutely an advocate in terms of moving, but also an advocate in terms of, many times people feel nervous going into appointments or with other providers. They're like, well, I don't really want to do this, but I don't want to say no. So I'm happy to kind of help advocate for people in that way as well.
Well, in that case, you brought in the daughter's concerned about her mother's driving because of her age and just life. And so you brought in someone who could do an evaluation, and she's still driving.
Yeah, absolutely. They did a couple little tweaks just to make sure that the daughter felt good, and mom was on board with them as well. And yeah, she's still driving, and she passed. It was great.
Okay. So this is kind of a list of some of the types of services and things that you do. And I think you hit on most of them already.
There are a lot of things that I do. A lot. One thing I don't do is I don't do pet care. I just draw the line at animals.
Oh, pet care.
Pet care. I mean, there are, and many times people have someone, because one thing is if you live alone and you're thinking if something were to happen, or if you were needing to go into the hospital or even have a scheduled surgery, it's who's going to take care of the pet. And so, I'm happy to arrange it, but I'm not taking the cat home.
Okay. All right, but I bet you know somebody to call.
Oh, yes.
Or
Yeah.
several different people that.
Yeah, and then we have a wide network. There are 14 care managers that work with Care Choice. So I'm also, if I don't know, frequently reaching out who knows about this, or Cynthia if it's a financial resource, just to kind of find the best way.
So Care Choice Care Management is who that you work for.
Yes.
Okay. There's 14 of you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Has anybody in here ever heard of this company? Did you know that something like that even existed? Okay.
Well, and this is just a segue or a side trip, but you might want to talk just briefly about Guardian Assist.
Yeah. Well, they have, so
okay.
that's a whole, they have other companies also that are wonderful resources. We've actually had Steve in before, and we probably will again. But yeah, if you want to just real quickly say what other companies that what they help out with.
Yeah, so they'll help out with if you, I have several folks who are, they don't have really any family. They have very few friends, or their friends are unable, and they need a power of attorney. So they have folks who can serve as your power of attorney. I can, of course, help get that set up. But then they also have Guardian Assist. So if you have an adult child, perhaps, that has a disability, that needs a guardian, or if you are the guardian but you're thinking, gosh, I don't know that I can keep doing that ongoing. There's no one else really to take the reins. They have that as an option as well, some folks who can serve as a legal guardian for clients.
Yeah. It's a wonderful organization with everything.
And kind of one of the other things I didn't really touch on is just making sure as well, and this is somewhat with Cynthia, that also affairs are in order, and that you have your power of attorney documents, and that it is who you want it to be. As time changes, those people may change, but that's part of the assessment process is, do you have power of attorney documents? Do you have that in order? Again, it's only going to benefit you to be able to pick who you want making your decisions, right? And that's really what it's about, is planning ahead and being proactive so that you're able to make all the decisions yourself, and you have people around you who can just implement it or help you implement it.
Okay, thank you. Cynthia, let's talk about finances.
Yeah, I love finances. Always loved it.
Yesterday was tax day for me,
Oh
so
my.
not a pretty sight.
Well, some of you have heard kind of what I've talked about before. Let's go to the first slide here. This is just something that, there's an organization called the Thinking Ahead Roadmap. You can check them out on the internet. They have lots of great resources. But this is a slide from their work, and essentially they're giving you some information about your ability to understand and evaluate alternatives and make optional choices. And you can see the line below that. 30 to 40% of normal agers make suboptimal choices. And in part, that's not necessarily because of age, it's because of lack of knowledge about the place where they sit in their life. So we sit in a place, and I'm in your same age range, I'm, Medicare eligible, etc. I don't know about all those things until you actually go through it and experience it. I learned this year through another vendor that my husband and I, he's retired military, we could get a Medicare Advantage plan, and it has saved us a bunch of money. Fortunately, we're healthy, but there is a way to do it. I did not know that it was possible. This is the second slide, and this one really always hits me hard.
Yeah.
Because they gave some older adults a test, and what they discovered was that as you get older, you think you know more about finances than you actually do. So test time, I'm sure that probably figured in a little bit, but you can see there's a pretty wide span there between those two lines. Is we think that we are doing okay, and we don't necessarily make those optimal choices.
Yeah, so the red is the confidence level, and the blue is actually the financial literacy.
Yeah. So we have a common client who is very confident in her ability to manage her finances, and in some cases she does things very well, but it's not consistent. It's a matter of developing a system so that she can indeed manage her own check writing and online bill pay, which surprisingly.
That's another reason why as we get older, we're more susceptible to financial scams because of that. So
And I have someone, it's frequent that I'll get someone forwarding me an email. Hey, do I need this? Is this garbage? Is this solicitation? Or even just mail? And so, folks can use me as a resource of like, nope, delete, do not open, leave it alone, rip it up. I ripped one up the other day. We've had the same mail, and I'm like, no. But again, just as a resource to kind of help people, because sometimes you just don't know. And it's nice when Cynthia's involved, because I'll be like, I don't know, let's ask Cynthia.
Yeah, well, and this is covered in the other video, so you guys can back and look at it, but when you get those emails, I had a client the other day that sent me an email, what should I do with this? And I looked at the email, and the little address, if you hover over it, it shows that it's not a real address, it's a scammy kind of thing. So I sent it back and pointed it out to her. She's educated enough, she would remember that. But those are the kind of things we get involved in the nitty gritty of people's lives. And as Christina said, we are not there to be the boss of anybody. We have clients who gift money to people that we don't agree with, that we think is not a good thing for our clients. We try to work with them to educate them and help them understand, why that's not a good thing, but it's not our job to boss them around and tell them what to do. If they need that check written, we will help them get that done and give it to whoever they choose to give it to. So generally, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but let me get into this a little more.
You are actually a daily money manager, okay? And these are some bulleted items that you gave me of some examples of what you get involved with. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. We'll talk a little bit more in another slide about the association that I'm involved in. But daily money managers, when it comes to all things financial, not investments, not legal issues, I'm very much like Christina. I hit a very broad range of topics. What she does, I always say, on the psychosocial side of people's lives, I do on the financial side. And so for people who are struggling maybe to keep up with their bills or need a system that is more manageable, I come in and help them establish that. And then if they want me to continue, I will continue to help them pay their bills and do life so that they can spend time doing the things they really want to do and feel like they feel like their finances are in order. Many times it'll involve trips to the lawyer, trips to their financial advisor, or finding them a financial advisor they're comfortable with. I don't know if I talked about this previously, but one of the things I recommend to people is that they have a feeder bank account. When you retire, you have a feeder bank account, and you have all your income come in on the side where the financial advisor is. Everything goes in the financial advisor pot, and then they feed you a certain amount of money every month to that local account, keeping that account much safer from scammers. Because when you want to get money from the financial advisor side, you have to call a person, and they have to identify you, and they know you. They won't take something in a message over the phone and transfer money. So it's just one more step to safeguard yourself in case something does happen and you end up in a romance scam or something truly insidious. So we are specialists also. We know scammy situations. We know things like how to establish your accounts in a way that as you get older is a safer way to be. Meal management, I talked about that. It sounds like a really simple thing, but it can get complicated. And people saw the AT&T letter that came out a couple months back. It's like, what do I do with this? Do I sign up for this? Do I not sign up for this? We reconcile accounts, which becomes more difficult for people who used to do it in paper and pencil because you have ATM charges. Some people use Venmo. Some people buy things on Amazon. So keeping track of all that in a paper register becomes almost impossible for most people. You just will not write all of those things down. You might write your checks down, but all those other things, you don't really know what your balance is. So, helping people to understand, or even giving them someplace where they can go and get their daily balance on a phone or online somewhere. A lot of what we do is cash flow and budgeting. Usually one of the first things we get involved in, particularly if someone brings us in for legal reasons or for other care reasons, is to help them get a realistic budget in place. Because many times people will tell their financial advisor, well, this is my income and this is my expenses. And the advisor, when they're doing the progression out to when, however long you think you're going to live, they're relying on those numbers. And if those numbers are off by, a lot, or even a small amount, sometimes that can make a difference to someone. And then those numbers also don't incorporate the additional care that happens over time. So, those conversations need to be had, and we will usually help people kind of ascertain, here's where you are, here's maybe the care you're looking at adding, and let's talk to your advisor now.
And one way I kind of with that is that Cynthia and I have worked together a lot, and that, again, I don't get in the middle of finances. I don't need to know. If you want to share, you can, but I don't need to get in that. But Cynthia might say, gosh, talk to the client, like, hey, your pharmacy bill was really high. Is there a new medication that was prescribed that, was a lot higher? And then, many times the client and I have worked together to figure out a different way to obtain that medication that's less expensive. Like, I think we can do a mail order, and then I will work, like, okay, we'll set this up, you and I, let's get it, and then I'll help get it, set up so that you're getting your right medication. But, Cynthia on her end can kind of flag it as like, oh, this is higher. And again, sometimes the client are like, I don't want to do mail order. And that's fine, you certainly don't have to. But again, it's nice to have, her kind of pointing out to people, hey, this seems a little higher, are there other less expensive options? And then, I can work with a client to actually implement those options.
That's one of the first things we ended up doing, I think, was we had a client who was going to Michigan for vacation, and she needed to get this medication, and it was an injectable. And because the care manager didn't have the time, I said, I'll just call up and see if I can figure out how to get this done. And we discovered that if she had it done in the infusion center, it was $0 under B, Medicare B, instead of Medicare D. And so she saved it. At the infusion center, she could go have the same injection done instead of by the pharmacist. She could go to the infusion center, and then it was like $750 a month. It was a lot, and it was going to be lifetime medication. So, a lot of this knowledge, you gain by experience and by talking to other people in your networks and in your associations. There's just a tremendous amount of things that change. And Medicare being this year, you're going to all hear, Part D is changing, and so you need to go make sure you talk to your person about what are you going to do about your Part D. So the other thing that we do is we coordinate with your experts, like your lawyer. If you've got a trust or a legal situation, we'll coordinate things and make sure everybody gets the documents. This is really the big thing we do, is help people at the end of the year when they're trying to get their taxes together. Because you will find out as you age, and many of you might be very lucky and be home till the last dog dies, but many people do end up in care, and that becomes very expensive, and that's a tax-deductible expense in most cases. So, you're going to want to have some way of accumulating all those expenses, especially for the day that maybe the tax code goes back to what it was before, because that's still in the wings this year. But we help people get their taxes together, and because we have systems in place, we can sometimes make that a very easy process. This is just the organizations that I'm a member of, like Sharon, I'm a member of a CSA, but the American Association of Daily Money Managers is a thing. It's been around for about 25 years, and it is growing rapidly because of the aging population, and also because more people are solo. Not necessarily solo entirely, but they may have children who are, like mine, off in Pittsburgh and Florida. And if I needed help, they're not going to be there day to day to help me. So, there's more and more need for this. We also, just as information, we also work with people who just don't want to do their finances. I mean, there are many people out there who just, perhaps you spend your whole life doing teaching, and we were talking earlier, you don't have the tracks in your brain to do, you can write checks, but you don't really have that overview of how things should work. I have one client who's retired, and she has a mother in care, and neither one of them had a financial advisor. So I take them and help them find someone who can at least look at this whole situation and then advise them on how to get money for this mother's care. And then I help her implement those things, because it's difficult sometimes to implement those recommendations. And especially when you're talking market, you're talking time. You're like, I don't want to lose money.
Yep.
So we as ADA members, we're background checked. My employees are also are also checked, they get their credit report looked at, they have to have good credit. We have a code of ethics and a standard of practice. Code of ethics, any group that you're involved with, you want to see that they have some kind of code of ethics. And ours particularly says we don't take commissions from any of the people we refer to. We are working essentially as your fiduciary. And we're looking after your best interests at all times.
So these are great certifications to look for that you might be interested in hiring to help you or a loved one out. So, all right, thank you. We're going to move on real quick to a case study so we can talk about real life example of everyday things that we work on and how we work together to collaborate. So.
Okay. Yes, this was a client that I had. The client had a daughter who was trying to figure things out in an estate that had been kind of sitting for about 8 months, and they'd gotten some things done, but she was just frustrated. She says, we need somebody to help us get this done. Financial advisor brought me in. The mom was living in her home, in good shape for the most part, and the daughter was like, I just need to prepare. And the mom was like, I've already had somebody come organize me. I don't want anybody to take over my life. And I was like, I'm not here. I'm just here to give you a little help. We don't have to organize anything you don't want to organize, but let's talk about how things are now. And the mom was, part of what she had was all the accounts that were in the estate. We discovered that the mom had a trust that she didn't know she had, but none of the accounts were in the trust because they didn't know it existed. So, we went through this whole process of updating the trust, and then we had about $1 million that was sitting in the bank making zero. Of course, the banker loved her. She was at her beck and call whenever she wanted copies or any information. I mean, banks are wonderful places, but you don't want that money sitting there making 0.15% or whatever it is. So, the financial advisor's thrilled with me because eventually, and it took a while because this was a lot of complicated accounts. We had a whole schedule of this is what we're going to do when. We needed to know what went through all the accounts so nothing got missed because the dad had done all this work and the mom was she's like, she kind of knew, but she didn't really know. So we had to do a lot of documenting of things, and then we had to move all that stuff over to the advisor side of the portfolio. So it was protected because in the bank, even the way they had it situated, it wasn't all FDIC insured.
Yeah.
These are just little, these are little things that it went in one bank, yes. So, it was a big process. And in the course of doing this, I learned a lot about this lovely lady and her family. And the daughter was dealing with the family business. And so I was helping the daughter a little bit to kind of figure that side of the equation out. But the daughter turned to me, she said, Mom's not quite as sharp as things need to be. And what am I going to do if this all blows up in my face? And Mom, like I said, she's still living at home, she's still doing great, but they needed a plan. They needed to know what would happen if Mom fell and had to go to the hospital, or what would happen if something something important came up. And that's when I said, you really need to build a team. And so we brought in Christina to help organize that. And Christina digs into the details. I didn't even notice that there were no smoke detectors in the home. These are the kind of things that people don't think about, but important thing. We're working on it. It needs to get done. A little complications. But anyway, so I brought Christina in, and she started a whole nother takeaway.
Yeah, this lady was recently widowed, and so she had taken care of her ill husband. So a lot of her own personal doctor's appointments, she was like, I'm taking care of him. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then she was kind of like, kind of when I go through and ask about just routine care, she's like, yeah, I haven't done any of that for a long time. And then she wanted a new primary care, so we really just kind of sat down and we talked about what she'd like out of a primary care, what location works best for her, because she still drives, she still takes herself to her appointments. So, we managed to get her a new primary, we got her appointments caught up, which sometimes, again, she's capable of sitting and making an appointment, but it can be really overwhelming when you feel like you're sort of behind by a lot. You know, it's like, oh, I don't even want to get started because this is just, I don't even want to. So we just sat down one afternoon and scheduled a bunch of appointments. Many of them she goes to on her own. Some she'd say, I don't really know why I'm kind of confused by that appointment, and my daughter always asks me questions and I don't ever really know. And so I will go with her to some appointments that maybe are a little more complicated or that are, in her words, this is a really important appointment, so I need an extra set of ears. And then she can communicate with her daughter if she feels like she doesn't have time or doesn't want to. I can certainly update the daughter as well. So again, she's making the decisions for herself. I'm just there to sort of help support her. She did end up having a cataract surgery, but again, we have to figure out how are you gonna manage the drops? What system are we gonna use? What are we gonna do about food? You're not gonna be able to drive, and you know, just all of those details that you don't realize, like you can't bend over to feed the dog, so we've gotta move this up, we've gotta move up the water. How are you gonna do that? So thinking about those things in advance, so that way the day of surgery, she's not dropped off at home and then like, I can't feed the dog. This is a problem.
And even getting there.
Yes.
And getting home,
and,
because
yeah.
you can't take yourself.
Right. Yep. And her daughter had a very busy job, and she also would say, I don't want to burden her with all of this. Not that she wouldn't, and not that the daughter would not have. They have a wonderful relationship, but you know, so thinking about all of that. So we've got her medical appointments. We brought in some, I don't want to say help. It is help, but it's more, she lives alone, and this was someone to help her prepare meals, and she would kind of get meals set up for her for the week. You know, my client would do her own grocery shopping, but just some of those smaller things that, if food isn't really made, I'm just going to kind of eat whatever. And she knows nutrition is important, and so.
Well, and she was grieving at the time that we started, and I think you set her for a little while with a therapist online, because I was coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was kind of thing where she was grieving, she didn't really even recognize she was grieving.
Yeah. And we had some home PT and OT that came in to work with her just to make sure the home was set up right, that we had grab bars in the right spot, that we, you know, had all of that done for her and taken care of so that she could safely be around at home. And so she's still there. So it's nice. But again, then too, she's one that has a lot of mail. Sometimes I help her kind of just, she has lots of mail. Lots and lots of mail. I'm like, this can't be just you. Sure enough. So just kind of helping, she's like, yeah, I don't even want to go through all of that. And so I'll pull out some
I can help with that. I didn't realize that.
Well, sometimes.
They're catalogs. Like they're catalogs.
All right. So, I mean, that's a huge list of things examples of things you can take care of in that particular case study. And then one of them I wanted to specifically mention was the access to medical portals. As everything technology progresses, all the doctors want you to have a portal that you put your questions in, that you can see your results, and
Yes, and she's one that she's like, I don't need that, I'll just call them. And I'm like, well, they're not gonna answer your call. Sadly,
absolutely.
No, it's
You're
it's
really in a
Yeah.
very precarious situation when you don't have that ability.
Yeah, so I'll set them up for people if they don't have them. For quite a few clients, they give me proxy access, meaning that I log in as Christina, as a care manager on behalf of the client. So, you know, when they check INR levels and they go up or down and the warfarin dosing changes, you know, I get alerts and I'll kind of look and just say, hey, this is off. Make sure you put that in your, did you see that, you know, your warfarin changed? And, oh, okay, thanks. But yeah, and then I can send messages, but often too, I'll have people, we put it on their phones and walk through so that they can do it on their own. I mean, certainly that's the best, but sometimes you also don't feel well. And they're like, I don't feel well, something's not right. And they don't feel like logging onto a portal and sending this message into the great abyss. So I'm happy to do that for them and monitor that.
All right, thank you. So real quick, we're gonna talk about another case study. And Sharon started off with a client by the name of Lee, who had a son named Kevin. And tell us about how that relationship started and progressed.
So I got connected with Lee through an in-home private duty company. They called because they thought, I don't know that we're the right ones for this gentleman. Very isolated, depressed, all by himself. Kevin had just moved out a couple months prior, had left all of his things. It was a 2-story condo. And Lee was living upstairs. The stairs were getting hard for him to navigate. Health not great, because when you just sit all day in your chair and watch TV, your muscles are not going to respond. He was a vet, but very minimal income. So started working with him on vet aid and attendance. He did serve in Vietnam, was over there for over a year. So he was entitled to that, so got him in touch with a gentleman, took him there. Driving was not his favorite thing to do. Figured out that we need to sell the condo. Contacted Stephanie to move from there so that we could find him a place to go.
So you skipped over a couple things.
what did I skip over?
I will talk about it.
Good.
So,
Yeah, I saw her.
So Sharon got him lined out to get his VA benefits so that he could actually move. He was very depressed, he was isolated, he's a super nice, fun guy, and he can hardly get up and down the stairs. The place was full of stuff and had not been dusted. They lived there 20-some years, and honestly, it had never been dusted. And although the trash had been, the food
Trash
stuff
was taken
had been
out,
taken out, but nothing else, okay? If there were containers from restaurants, for carry out, all of that got saved, crammed in closets. Nothing besides rotten food or got thrown out. And even the refrigerator, 2 refrigerators were full of rotten food. But anyway, so Sharon toured communities with them. I know he specifically was leaning towards a place with a pool.
Yes, he wanted the pool because he wanted to do the aquatic therapy. So we got him a place that does the therapy twice a week, that is not even through Medicare, so that he could just do that, but then also are looking into getting actual physical aquatic therapy for him.
So, and I know you had his application for VA benefits reviewed by an attorney.
Yep, I took it to an attorney. She did me a favor, looked it over, put a couple little notes in it, but also the gentleman down at the VA did file it for us. So I had the date, and he said there should be no problem, so we're trusting that.
Yep. So you toured communities with them, and then he ultimately made a decision of where he wanted to go. And you and I, once I got called in, she's like, I got a client I wanted to see if maybe you could help out with. So I went in and met, and I said, yeah, I would love to help you. And so we needed to coordinate his move and getting rid of all of that stuff.
Yeah, because the son literally took nothing
He took nothing.
with him.
And I called and I really tried to make him feel bad. It didn't work. It was a complete mess, and he left, the son left. I don't know what he took when he moved out, but when I got him to come back, he apparently came in like a whirlwind and busted open a safe and took a few things and said, I'm done. You can take care of everything else. And like I said, this place hadn't been dusted in 20 years. It had not been maintained. So anyway, he was not, Kevin is, no. So anyway, so then we've kept in touch as far as like, this is when it's going on the market. I can't sell it till he gets out. I gotta get everything out of there so that I can get it clean, so I can get pictures, blah, blah, blah. So end result, he relocated to a community. She got him the benefits. I got his property on the market, got it under contract with the best terms possible. We're actually closing Friday morning. He's going to be able to pocket money.
Which he needs until those benefits come through, because it takes a while. You don't just file it and get them. So it's months.
So, happy story, but those are examples of things that, this is why we have other people rely on that are experts in their own respective areas. So, yeah, thank you for all you guys do. So, how about a round of applause for our panelists? All right, so I'm going to open it up for questions now because we're running behind. All right.
Yeah. Quickly, Sharon said that her services are free. What's the basic cost for your other two ladies here?
Well, Christina and I both work hourly. I kind of work just like a lawyer in 6-minute increments. But most of what I do is the first few months are kind of time consuming. But then once we get everything sort of organized, if someone wants to do that kind of organization, it becomes a regular, kind of roughly the same amount of money. Because you decide how many times you want me to come a week or every month, really. And sometimes that can be once a month, sometimes it can be every week. It just really depends on each individual situation.
So, range of hourly rate or?
My hourly rate right now is $125. Which is cheaper than, I was talking to some lawyers the other day, some financial people, they're like, that's cheaper than it would be to get an accountant in here to figure something out. But we try to work with people, and many times if someone really can't afford us ongoing, what we do is offer consults, and this can be done at a fixed cost.
So I bill much the same way. There's no set number of hours or time, and it's billed in 6-minute increments. And it is $150 an hour. But again, it can be kind of as much as you need or as little, because I have several people who cost is a concern. So we want to make sure we're using my time together with them, resourcefully.
Jill?
Let me add one more thing, and that is, in my world, many times I save them money. I have a client who had a bunch of medical bills, and I said, it's just a financial situation. I'm like, we need to file for assistance. The hospitals have assistance. And he's not a poor person. We filed it. He got like 80% off his bill, and then one of the hospitals paid the rest through a grant. So, those kinds of things, I saved him probably about $20,000 in the course of, a few months.
Jill? You have a question? No? Sorry. I thought your name was Jill, but your name tag's being hidden.
Me?
Yes.
Yeah, my name is Jill.
Okay.
I asked person. Just to repeat what you said on the announcement, I do have a question though. How is your client's privacy protected as far as, because you're digging into the weeds in some of their private matters. How's that protected? I know how banks protect it and how HIPAA and all of that, but how do you protect the clients?
Yeah, because we're a part of an association, that's a very regular thing, and I actually have a whole sheet that I send to people. But we use the techniques and tools that most people do. We use password protectors. We use 2MFA. We have an agreement with our contract that says what we will do and what we won't do. And so some people, we're in their bank accounts, literally. We use Microsoft 365 because that's what's recommended. We use all the bells and whistles of encrypted laptops, and I've got a whole list of things that we do. But primarily the thing that we're concerned about is just an individual's privacy, person to person. We're talking general case studies today. But we don't even talk about things with their children if they tell us not to. We don't communicate with anybody, and even if I have them on the list of people I can communicate with, if I feel something is sensitive, I'll say, can I talk to so-and-so about this? And I follow their lead.
So are there privacy laws that govern what you can and can't do, or is it the document that the client signs that says what you will and won't?
The document and our code of ethics.
Okay.
We are not covered by HIPAA, although
Right.
my IT people have me kind of in the same category as a financial advisor. So the systems I have in place are expensive. We also carry errors and emissions insurance and cyber in case something happens.
Okay, good to know, thank you.
And that's why finding people who have the track record, who can recommend it, who, really are, bonded, who have their background checked is so important, yeah.
And so for me, it would be similar to a physician or a care provider in that I would only disclose information that we had releases for. If I go to appointments with people, even if I bring something up, oftentimes I will say, was it okay? Or we've talked about it in the car, perhaps, of what do we want to talk about? And at times they don't want information shared with providers, they don't want certain information shared with family, and that is their right, and I would honor that right as, unless of course the obvious exclusions of folks who are, at risk of suicide, homicide, those court order, the basic legal exclusions. And that's why I do actually like to do the proxy access on the for health records, because the client gives permission. I can't just be like, I want proxy access to Cynthia. They have to give that. They can revoke that at any time, rather than me. I don't like logging in as them into any websites, even if they're sitting there and they know. I just don't enjoy that as well.
Yes, sir.
I had a question about, a couple of you mentioned about getting rid or looking at mail. So I bought cars and I get pestered by everyone wanting to sell me stuff. And then now looking personally, I even have a mother-in-law, passed away 3 years ago, quit driving 10 years ago. Somehow my name's associated with her. And I was thinking, why am I still getting mails from people wanting to sell me stuff on a car, on a person not alive anymore?
Yeah, that's a good question. I still got one from my mother-in-law the other day. You can go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, and you can probably search for ways that you can get rid of junk mail. I think even if you do like a search on the web, there's some very simple things you can do. I haven't demoed this myself yet, but there's something called deleteme.com that's promoted by a financial person that I listen to on a blog or on a video podcast. And I haven't tried that, but supposedly if you're out on the web and you want to try to get yourself out of some of those dark sites and places where they share information, Delete Me will go in and they'll do a bunch of deletion things for you. But again, I haven't demoed that, but apparently it is recommended for people who are on the web and want to protect themselves a little more carefully.
It's called Delete Me?
It's called deleteme.com.
And you can also sign up for, just like you do the no call list, you can sign up for the no junk mail list.
Yeah, and as we well know, the no call list doesn't do a really good job. That's, if you have a cell phone, block them. I get regular calls from Hilton about timeshare things, and I told you over and over, but they call from different numbers all the time, so you can't really report them. I just block the numbers, and yeah. But yeah, the mail is ridiculous. It's crazy, but I did mine a bunch of years ago, even before I was a daily money manager, and I get maybe 2 or 3 things a day. It's really nice.
Using the
Using the recommendations of the CFPB, and I've gotten on the catalog. There's a catalog opt-out site, and I think there's the one for mail. It costs you like $10, and it's a lifetime thing. So you can get yourself off of most of those lists. I'm not sure about like my mother-in-law. I don't think I ever filed for her, so maybe that's part of the problem.
Thanks.
The first one you mentioned was
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. It's a government agency, and you can get all kinds of consumer-related information and updates and information about how to deal with your finances. If you need a financial power of attorney, it explains what those people do. And I'm going to say also, we on a very selective basis can do the financial powers of attorney. Care Choice does the healthcare powers of attorney and guardianships. We do not really do conservatorships on my side, which is a whole different thing.
Can you say the name of that?
Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, CFPB.
I have the area contact information at my office. I actually tried to get him to come in. However, they were so short-staffed, he said 2025 he can come in. So hopefully that he will be one of our panelists. Yes, ma'am.
2 questions. So I have a special diet. If I were to go into a skilled care or an assisted living place, would that be an issue?
Nope, you let them know, and typically the doctor will definitely do that. Also, low sodium, some people are lactose intolerant, allergies, all that, they do accommodate those.
Well, I'm celiac, so I get gluten-free.
Yep, yep.
And the other issue, and I'm trying to remember that I'd address this to, the VA spouse benefits. I was able to get benefits from my husband when he was alive. Are there amounts or where?
There are amounts, so you need to contact the VA and file